no violence. If anybody tries to do violence, we shall just get him, put him in the deep freezer, and he cools down until the blood pressure comes down.
Something is happening in Uganda. A country once defined by hope is now trapped in poverty, corruption, protests, and allegations of human rights violations. At the center of it all is one man, an old man who has ruled for decades. He is opposed in the streets, challenged by the youth, criticized by the world, yet the ballot box keeps telling a different story. So, what's really happening in Uganda, and why does democracy here never seem to change power? This is the story of Yoweri Museveni, a politician who fought for freedom and now seeks to rewrite the rules of democracy itself. With Uganda's January 15, 2026 election, the world is watching not just a contest, but a question: can democracy survive incumbency that refuses to end? Uganda's story is one of resilience, struggle, and contradiction. In 1986, Yoweri Museveni led a movement that helped end brutal military rule and brought stability to a fractured nation. At the time, the victory was celebrated both in East Africa and abroad. But today, Museveni, now 81 years old and seeking his 7th term, runs in a political environment critics describe as increasingly repressive, with activists, journalists, and opposition figures facing intimidation. As Uganda heads to the polls, this video is not about predicting results. It is about understanding the system, the history, and what's at stake beyond election day. So, how did the liberator become a leader who some argue has bent the democratic system to maintain power for nearly 40 years? And what does this election really mean, not just for Uganda, but for democracies across Africa? My name is Timzy, and this is the African Discovery.
January 26, 1986, abalwanyi ba National Resistance Army basomoka ne bayingira Kampala.
Uganda was destabilized by years of military rule before Museveni's National Resistance Army took over in 1986.
That I will well and truly exercise the functions of the High Office of the President of the Republic of Uganda.
He was seen as a reformer, a unifier who promised to rebuild institutions. At first, elections were more open and Museveni won multiple mandates. Yet, in 2005, the constitution was rewritten to drop age limits. Term limits were removed earlier too, paving the way for prolonged incumbency. Importantly, while Museveni was elected, the rules changed with him in power, not before. That's not the evolution of a system. That's the consolidation of control.
Our AGH is supposed to have the register.
Opposition challenges have been met with tactics critics label as political policing, including arrest and violence. In 2021, opposition leader Bobi Wine, a former musician turned politician, energized young Ugandans and received about 35% of the vote. But his campaign was marked by accusations of interference.
We all ran for our lives. We had to go and get water. Some girls have fainted.
Several opposition candidates, including Bobi Wine and Patrick Amuriat, seen being arrested by police in this video.
People are burning cars, people are throwing the Molotov.
Ahead of the 2026 election, security forces have been deployed to Kampala and rights groups ordered to halt operations, a development described by the UN as part of a broader repression. When elections becomes exercises in control rather than choice, when voices are silenced and space for dissent shrinks, the question isn't just who wins, It is whether the system still belongs to the people. Uganda's political experience is not unique in Africa. In recent years, several other countries have witnessed similar patterns when incumbents extend power through tightly controlled elections and where allegations of fraud, exclusion, and human rights abuses have followed. In neighboring Tanzania's October 29, 2025 election, President Samia Suluhu Hassan was officially declared the winner with about 98% of the vote, but the process was widely criticized. Major opposition figures were barred from running, internet access was shut down, and observers said the election failed to meet democratic standards. Protests erupted in multiple cities, and opposition groups said the security crackdown that followed left hundreds dead, though exact figures remained hard to verify amid restrictions on reporting and communications. The African Union's own observer mission described the Tanzanian polls as not compliant with key democratic principles, citing ballot stuffing, restricted party agents, and interruptions to information flow. In Cameroon, a politically similar situation has unfolded.
I am suffering so much. So much. Paul Biya needs to stop. I was crushed when I heard the news about the results.
After the October 2025 presidential election, long-time incumbent President Paul Biya, who has been in power for over 4 decades, was declared the winner with about 53.66% of the vote amid strong allegations of fraud and disputed outcome. Following protests by opposition supporters, security forces were reportedly to have used lethal force and carried out hundreds of arrests nationwide, raising alarm among human rights groups. These cases illustrate a broader dynamic. When state power becomes deeply entrenched, democratic processes can weaken not just at the ballot box, but in the very freedoms that makes election meaningful. Whether it is in Tanzania, Cameroon, or Uganda, the question isn't simply who wins, but whether the election genuinely reflects the will of the people. Tension is rising in Uganda as ballots are cast and counted. The political atmosphere has grown increasingly charged. The country's main opposition figure, Bobi Wine, has warned that he will not accept results he believes do not reflect the will of the people. He has urged citizens, particularly young Ugandans, to remain alert and vocal, raising concerns about what could happen if the electoral process is disputed.
Internet has been switched off across the country. This is done in order to facilitate the intended rigging of the regime. Otherwise, why would the people of Uganda be denied the right to communicate, and why the Ugandan election should be held in the dark?
His message resonates with a generation frustrated by unemployment, rising living costs, limited political space, and a deep economic inequality. Uganda is one of the youngest countries in the world. The majority of its population is under 30, and for most of them, there has only ever been one president. This demographic reality is quietly reshaping political expectations. For young voters, this election is not just about policies, it is about whether change is even possible through the ballot box. This youth-driven pressure isn't unique to Uganda. Across Africa, rising youth populations are redefining what political legitimacy means. In Kenya, young voters played a decisive role in recent elections and protests over economic reforms. In Nigeria, youth mobilization reshaped national conversation around governance and accountability. In Senegal, sustained youth pressure forced political concessions and delayed attempts to manipulate electoral outcomes. What all these cases have in common is this: young people are no longer satisfied with stability alone. They want representation, they want fairness, and above all, they want their votes to matter. In Uganda, that generational demand now collides with a political system built on continuity and control. Whether the ballot box can absorb that pressure peacefully, or whether it produces deeper unrest, remains one of the defining questions of this election. Uganda's election is not an isolated moment. Across Africa, leaders who once championed liberation now face questions about how and when they give up power. History remembers those who built, but it judgingly remembers those who cling. On January 15, 2026, Uganda went to the polls. Museveni, the man who once fought for freedom, seeks yet another term. Bobi Wine offers a symbol of youthful aspiration, and tens of millions of Ugandans will decide, or at least participate in a process whose credibility is contested domestically and internationally. Whether this election marks continuity or the beginning of something new, that's what history will judge, not just by vote cast, but by the democratic space that made those votes meaningful. Power may be held in office, but legitimacy lives in the hearts of the people. My name is Timsy, and this is the African Discovery. If you value calm, evidence-based breakdown of African power and politics, not noise, not propaganda, subscribe, because stories like this don't end with one country. Thanks for watching.